You are tuned in to the Story Behind the Business podcast. I am Leyland Diano. Virtually beside me is Joel McDonald, Adam Bessie, and Josh Dirks. I'll let Joel introduce him officially.
So Josh, you are the CEO and founder of a project Bionic, which is a marketing company. You're based out of Seattle, primarily with a focus on social media. Is that fair?
That's all we do, social media. So yeah, that would be fair.
Josh, I just want a quick question to start, because we've been kind of excited to hear what you're going to say, because obviously these are very different, interesting times we're in right now. And everybody is sitting on their phones. You have a very, very, very captive audience when it comes to social, but it's a matter of what are you putting out there? Just love to hear your thoughts on social media right now, the impact it's having, and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, having been in the social media space since 2009, we founded the agency. We've really been kind of on the forefront for a long time. So it's been interesting, because when I left, previous to that, I was the director of digital for Intercom Communications. They're the fifth largest radio broadcast company in the States. And when I left, I got patted on the head and told I'd be back in 6 months, because social media is only a thing teenagers did, right? And you start to advance through the last 10 years, almost 11 years now. And social media, as we're seeing today, has become the focal point of where everybody is turning right now for their news and information. It's the starting point. It's the gathering spot. It's the town square, if you will, in a virtual sense. So yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of watch it grow and change. It's been really interesting in this moment to watch the brands that we work with that have these really sound plans that, even though they're working through how they're changing to meet the new business objectives and the new challenges, what they're able to do in that moment and how quickly they can change their messaging, get messaging out at scale, see consumer adoption and behavior change, those types of things. So it's been really exciting from that standpoint. I think we can all admit, based upon the U.S. election with Donald Trump 4 years ago and some of that stuff, that there is some insidious sides of social media. We're even seeing it with some of the coronavirus products that people are trying to sell or that kind of thing. So in every great communication device, right, there's the people that use it really well and how it works and what it can do for you. There's also the flip side, where with every great power comes great responsibility, and there'll be people in there that try to do their own thing, as we've seen before.
Mm-hmm. So when this initially started to hit, Josh, I'm assuming how quickly did some of your clients come to you and like, you stop everything, or what's the strategy we need to adjust? Maybe give us a little insight in terms of like on your business side. You guys are retainer based or a monthly retainer for your clients. How's that been?
Yeah, no, I mean, Adam, it was a really insane moment. I was actually down. I had a big pitch the last week of February into early March. And so I was down in the Scottsdale area doing this pitch and was seeing some spring training games. My wife was texting me saying, hey, the grocery stores are getting lined up on. And the staff was starting to say, hey, something weird's going on. We started getting phone calls that Friday. By Monday and Tuesday the next week, we were in full immersion. What's our plan? Get in front of every client, let them know what our perspective is on this, how we can do those things. They need a brainstorm. So it became like everybody's been joking around about all the time they've had. Our staff would not agree with that in any way, shape, or form. It has been as busy, if not busier, than it's ever been in the 11 years of our company history, because every client is making that pivot and they need to communicate it. They need to get it out there. So it's been really interesting to watch that, but it's been going on now for just about a month. And I feel like today, this week, is the first time I'm waking up going, okay, every client has a plan. The communication's out there. If we've had testing things, that's done now. We now know which way we're going to go. And now we're getting back to kind of the business as usual, as much as usual can be when we're all stuck in our houses.
Josh, can you give me an example of what one of those pivots might be, what somebody was doing and what they immediately had to change to?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a couple examples right off the top. So like the first one is Taco Time Northwest, which is a family-run restaurant. They're in the 5th generation. They have 84 restaurants in Western Washington. They had launched an app 3 years ago, and part of that app that they rolled out last summer was an order ahead feature. It was really kind of more focused on introverted people that didn't want to really touch people or see people. Well, all of a sudden now that's all of us, and we all need that service, right? So it went from being a nice to have when we talk about it maybe in some niche audiences to becoming the number one thing they're talking about of how they can go ahead and sustain through this moment, right? So that's a really interesting pivot for them, and how their marketing hierarchy of messaging completely flipped within a 36-hour period as they began to look at these different things, right? You flip that to, we have another great partner here called Acuity Counseling, and she very specifically set up counseling offices next to high-tech campuses for workplace burnout, those types of things, and has grown a beautiful practice over the last 4 or 5 years. Well, all of a sudden now these campuses there's nobody there anymore. All of a sudden now she's struggling with how she did that. So she, within a couple of hours, pivoted all to telehealth. And so we've been redoing all the stuff around telehealth and how that can help. In addition to that, because of where people are mentally, we've gone from just targeting around these campuses to actually targeting the entire state of Washington, because that's where she's licensed at. And now she's actually picking up new business that she would not have had before by reaching outside of those things, which is pretty interesting. And then, on the flip side of that, we have a family-owned, long-time restaurant, the high-end steakhouse here in Seattle called Daniel's Broiler. Unfortunately, that family, because of the profitability of the kitchens, had to completely shut down everything. And so they're having to go ahead and work on that messaging and close their doors for the time being and furlough everybody, and how we get that messaging out to something that's really important to the community. So there's kind of 3 ends of the spectrum there, if you will.
Interesting.
Have you had any clients that, it sounds like those couple examples where they're still able to pivot and, make some investments in terms of, initiating that change in strategy? Have you had any that, were maybe in personal conversations between you and them were like, we don't know if we're going to make it through this? And did you still work through strategies with them, or is it kind of like a pause situation?
Great question. So what we're seeing, probably, if I was to talk about our customer base, we're probably seeing 20 to 30% of our clients having to freeze or pause stuff, right? So that hurts as an impact of a business, right? Because we're retainer based, we're only as good as what we did yesterday for these clients. So that's a huge reset. We're looking at it going, okay, here's 30% that are going to freeze. We probably have another 30 or 40% that are also saying, no, we can survive this. We have e-com set up. We're prepared for the moment. Let's just keep going. I don't want to spend more, but let's just kind of keep going. And then we have another 40% of people, 30 to 40% of people that are seeing opportunity right now, and they're doubling down on their budgets. We've even signed 3 clients in the last week, and we actually brought on 2 new team members at the same time. So for the first time in our history, we're like virtually training up employees right now, kind of tackling that challenge in the middle of all of this. So I think it really depends on what you see. And if we look historically, which is a big thing for me, I think that in every great recession or every great step back in the economy creates an incredible opportunity for a brand, and new brand category leaders are made out of every recession. You think about the 2008 time, you had Subway, who was like the creme de la creme. When they went into the 2008 recession, everybody wanted one of those franchises, and they went to this value coupon-based thing and completely destroyed their brand. And out of that came Panera Brands, which surpassed them, right, and created a new category around things. So I think it's just really interesting that, yeah, there are restaurants like Daniel's that unfortunately can't stay profitable, so they do have to close their doors. But there's so many other opportunities right now for business leaders and true entrepreneurs that I think that as long as we're staying nimble and thinking creatively about things, there's a big opportunity for us right now.
So Josh, oh, sorry, Leyland, I just to kind of tap onto what you were just saying there, Josh, like as a business, what are some of the things you can look at to creatively make that adjustment to your brand on a social level? And maybe before you kind of answer that, maybe give us insight into, or give our listeners insight into, what platforms do you guys focus on, and how do you tell your client what platform to be on? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Twitter? Is it Instagram? And then once you kind of tell that, maybe just say like, okay, as a business, these are the things that you need to be looking at first and foremost in order to pivot yourself into this new economy.
Yeah. So since we're a social media only agency, Adam, we play kind of on anywhere that an end user can post a piece of content and other people can react to it. So, I mean, that covers everything from Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube and the big boys, all the way down to things like Real Self and those type of niche sites, right? 90% of our work, 95% of our work is done on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, a little LinkedIn, a little Snapchat now, and a little bit of YouTube here and there. So those are, predominantly the big boys that you think about all the time, right? is kind of where we're playing. Some TikTok here and there, but again, it's
Just gonna say no TikTok yet. I do have 70,000 views on a video.
Leyland is big on TikTok, and he likes to tell everybody.
No one would have thought that I could get 70,000 views on TikTok, but I did.
Leland, it's we'll have the next podcast about it. Leland's hacks from about TikTok for brands. So that'll be our next series.
How to TikTokify your business.
Yeah.
So Josh, then when you're talking to your clients and you're adjusting their plans, are you obviously you're looking at from a business perspective where they're going to get the most engagement, and that's where they should be focusing most of their time. What are some strategies what are some of the strategies that you're taking with your clients to I don't want to say leverage this time, but like what are some of the things that you're kind of walking your clients through in terms of thinking about talking and engaging in today's type of marketplace?
Yeah, so I think the beautiful part is as we talk to our clients right now, for the first time since I can remember, even in my lifetime, human beings have an abundance of time for the first time, right? We actually have time on our hands. So you're seeing this in every stat that you can look at, the amount of people that are using Zoom, Netflix, Hulu, but the usage of even social media has come back full bore. I was joking with somebody the other day. I was like, Facebook's like back to 2009 levels, where you can be talking on a friend from high school, and somebody you work with will find that comment and then start to a whole war inside of Facebook again, like it was way back in the day. And it's really crazy to kind of watch how that's happening. But I think oftentimes as marketers, we're in this issue where we're trying to get attention. And right now there's an abundance of attention out there if you're putting out really awesome content. So as we think about this stuff, it's what are those brand messages of those brands? Well, first it's looking at the business saying, okay, what can we do to drive revenue right now? Can we drive revenue, or can we drive future revenue? What do those look like? And so if you can, you still need to go through and be talking about how people can support you and those types of messages. But oftentimes, because of that time-starved economy, there's other pieces of our brand that we don't get to tell. We don't often get to talk about or go through and reinforce with our customer sets. And so right now is a really big time where people are watching what brands are doing. They're watching and realizing that, hey, Nordstrom just fired 2,000 people, and they did on the last day of the month. So they actually took away their healthcare benefits. For such a customer-friendly, brand, that sure seems weird, right? And so consumers are paying really, really close attention to how we as brands are treating our employees, our stakeholders, our communities, and those types of things. And this is an opportunity for every brand, whether you clean carpets and have been around for 6 generations, or whether you're a big, huge tech giant, right? This is a massive opportunity for those brands to begin to tell these stories in a much bigger way and show who they truly are. And we, talk about Simon Sinek's why and all these other things that we've talked about through the years, right? But at the end of the day, this is a chance to talk about those values and talk about that culture and start to get people to pre-purchase equity in your brand today, so that when we do come back out of this, they can't support you now, but they can support you as we move forward.
So is that sort of some of your messaging towards your clients, where this is not necessarily an opportunity to be purchasing, but this is an opportunity for you to be out there really working on your brand in a social media sense, instead of just trying to, sell a product?
Yeah, if you can't make revenue right now, there's not an easy path to that. We're absolutely talking about those things with our clients. And you're pointing to stories, like Toyota, what they did in the last downturn in their recession, where they weren't selling cars, but they were talking about their safety. We always knew them as a reliable brand, but they started talking about the features and benefits of their cars, and they're on par with other cars, and they came out with a tremendous spike in sales. It's those brands that are willing to double down in these moments where we have the time, we can get in front of the consumers, where we can tell them richer, deeper stories that are actualized and they see proof of, that makes them believers in brand, right? Brand is something we slap up as marketers and say, oh, look at that, isn't that cool? For consumers, it's a religion, it's a faith-based thing, and if they feel violated in that, then they're going to leave that brand forever. And so right now it's one of those opportunities, I think, that brands, if they take the time, because we have time, to really create great content, they can really move the brand forward in a perception way with a lot of their consumers and customer sets going forward.
Now, you mentioned Nordstrom. I'm curious your thoughts, Josh, on maybe one company you've seen that's been, and it doesn't have to be one of your clients, just in general, a company you've seen that is really doing a great job with their brand, and maybe somebody whose brand is kind of being hurted in this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know winners and losers right now, but I think that if you talked about, like, here locally in the Seattle market, there's a James Beard winning restaurant in the Canalist that's been doing bagels and burgers and things like that, and took what was a massively expensive 5-star restaurant and turned it into a place where people, it's along one of the main arteries here in town, people can literally come through and pick up stuff, and they've made their food accessible to everybody. They do have more expensive option right now, but they've been able to pivot into that. I think they've done a really nice job with that. I think a brand that, man, had all the opportunity in the world and is just screwing it up left and right is Zoom and their privacy policy, and how they have just left themselves wide open at this. And the backlash is so fast right now as we're watching. I mean, you started to see it come out Wednesday last week, and already now it's one of the #1 trending things about alternate tools to Zoom and things like that. They're going to treat your privacy. And again, this is where people think in a down economy that we're willing to just trade away our data like we used to. And I think that that's changed and people become more aware of it. And you're now seeing that happen. And those people that are getting caught with their hand in the cookie jar are getting penalized greatly for that. I think Zoom's made some massive missteps right now in what they could be doing.
Question about Zoom specifically. It's a part of a group, and we meet weekly on Zoom, and one of the guys was just absolutely reluctant. He's not interested at all. So of course, me being kind of the tech geek that I am, I did some research, and they've had some history of not great practice. What would you say that they like? Could they pivot or shift and put out messaging to correct that perception, or do you believe that it's just it's in their behavior and at the core that they're just not executing best business practice?
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's greed. It just comes down to simple greed, and where the 1% takes advantage of the 99%, instead of standing up to the 99%, we just get screwed over. I think that when I think about Zoom, if I was the CEO of Zoom, I would have been on Saturday or yesterday on Sunday having a long form apology of like, hey, we messed this up, and you're right. We were selling data to other providers. We were taking data and porting it over to other providers. That was our fault. Because of that, we've gone through and we've created our new terms of service. It's one page. It's done in 3rd grade English. Go check it out. You can go read it. You click on it. You guarantee that if you have a paid plan, it's your privacy. We're going to take that seriously, and have taken steps even in the last few days to start to go ahead and reinforce that, right? But there was an opportunity for them before the backlash got so noisy, because I heard about it in my hackers community 14 days ago. And then I started seeing it publicly 7 days ago, and now it's really reaching crescendo, which is too bad. And they could have been in front of that a long time ago if they would have been using some brand sentiment tools and really listening deep into the web about what was going on.
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, so what are some of the brand sentiment tools for some of the audience that maybe just heard that saying that you just said? What are some of the tools that some people should immediately be on during this time?
I mean, if you're not, like, there's the oldest one is Google Alerts. It's free. I mean, why you would not have your brand and any of your executives and any branded terms not being monitored inside of that, so Google can send you a report. It's not the most in-depth thing. It's not going to give you sentiment and weird things like that, but that's been a free tool that's been around for 12, 13 years. That makes a ton of sense. If you have Sprout as a tool for your social media, they have some brand listening pieces inside of there that come with most subscription plans, so you can jump in and do that right away. Radiant 6 is super robust. If you're a bigger brand that really wants to get really deep, there's that. If you're on the Meltwater stack, Meltwater has several different tools inside of their system that you can find for listening. There's a mention.com is another one that's out there, that's out of California, that you can find, right? That's pretty reasonably priced. So depending on where you're at in the marketplace, there are listening tools out there that can start to bring that stuff back, and monitoring those tools and looking at the change in conversation on a weekly basis is really important. I don't think it's important to look at by hourly or by day, because you can see some false stuff inside of that. But making sure you're monitoring at least by week and looking for spikes in that is really, really important.
I mean, even adjusting some of those tools to signal when someone's saying a keyword that you want to jump in conversation on. Obviously, social media is all about engaging and talking with people. So if you're trying to double down and get some social sales going, having those things, monitoring certain terms so that you can be part of a conversation is also a way you can utilize those assets.
Adam, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm remiss that I didn't talk about this earlier. So one thing that we really believe at Project Bionic, that social media didn't really start until there's that comment back from the brand or that like back from the brand. So we've invested really deeply in our community management team. And so one thing that really sets our brands apart is that we do have a whole team of people that are out there listening for brand mentions, they're listening for keyword messaging, they're looking for influencers talking about your brand, and they are responding. I think when I think about what a lot of people have put in their efforts of their social media for giving out tips right now, I think jumping in and getting really serious about your community management right now and making sure that you're replying to people in just a few minutes, 10 hours, really important right now, that kind of stuff. And then like you're talking about using some like, Twitter is an open, what I love about Twitter is just open kind of room where if you're monitoring things, you can see and hear those things and jump into those conversations, right? Begin to think about those types of things and really invest in your community management, because social media, if you're not doing community management, is just database marketing on steroids, right? The true stuff starts whenever you start to have that dialogue back and forth and share laughs and laughter and tears and things like that go back and forth online.
I want to back up really quickly to the sentiment analysis. Just this is a personal question that, now I have the opportunity to ask someone.
And I don't know what the 70,000 people on TikTok think about you. I'm sorry.
No. Okay. So back when I was a Radiant 6 user years ago in the corporate world, and a very powerful tool by Salesforce, of course, but sentiment analysis at that point was early stages of AI and not really great. And I remember the industry was transitioning to actually having people manually do it overseas. Where is it, just really quickly, and this is just a side note question because I want to know, where is it at now in terms of figuring out that actual sentiment analysis to determine if your brand's getting a positive perception or a negative one?
Yeah, so I would say that it's still more human labor intensive. So you're probably at a 60% human labor to about 40% now being AI, where they're learning the tools and learning behind that. A lot of things about character analysis, like how many characters did someone go ahead and put into the review to see how big it is. Like, I love your tacos, but your restaurant's always dirty and there's always people running around. And like, they dedicated 700 characters to the cleanliness of the restaurant. That was way more important than they loved their tacos, right? And that's the thing that's really gone on with the AI and teaching that kind of stuff. But the teams we pull in the data in a raw file and then highlight and edit those things to add different levels of positivity or negativity to it in trends, and then put topics on top of it, analyze what we're looking at any given time.
Speaking of pivoting, I want to pivot and ask a totally different question right now, Josh. As the CEO of the company, obviously these are really tough times. There's no script. We're kind of making it up as we go. I'm wondering about you and how you're managing, and how even you're trying to decipher through all the news and everything that's happening, and still trying to lead your team and still trying to, get work done for your clients. As you mentioned, I don't know if we were recording when you said it, but you guys are really busy right now.
Yeah, no, it's been a really interesting moment as a leader in business and how you start to work with your people. I'm a huge people first thing. That's why I'm actually in business, is because of people. I love growing my people, whether it was social media or widget making. I really enjoy the culture of helping develop young talent and where they can go from there, right? So yeah, we've been super busy. So the first thing I think that I realized as a leader is that all of us were starting to deal with the anxiety in a very different way. And that we needed to admit that, yeah, it's a little scary. It's a little hard out there, right? Like, yeah, there's a lot of nuance, and there's a lot, if you turn on the news all day long, it's going to be nothing but fear-based stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So the first thing was to reassure my team, come alongside my team and say, hey, this moment, do not live is no playbook. Just like building a social media agency in 2009, there wasn't any playbooks. We're doing something again for the first time, and that actually plays into our company values really well, because we have courage and innovation as two of our company values. Like, this is a moment we need to hold each other accountable, check in on each other, make sure. So really building the community first underneath that, and saying, hey, the work's going to be important, but make sure you check in on one another. And if you are feeling lonely, let's just hop on Zoom and share a beer or share a glass of wine together and that kind of thing, and making sure there was a community first, that we all admitted what was the elephant in the room, that this was a scary moment in time. Behind that, there's kind of on a weekly basis is checking in with them and making sure that you're driving them towards the right things. Because I think that, like one of my guys this morning said, I feel kind of stuck in quicksand because there's not any true deadlines on anything. So I know I've got a lot of work to get done, but the deadlines are kind of nebulous. And so we've kind of built this culture, like, mark down 4 or 5 things that you are personally, buying into that you're going to get done today, and let's keep the ball rolling that way. So we are getting other things done. And for a long time at PB, we've also followed the book Traction from Gino Wickman, and so we've had all these rocks that we've not been able to have time to work on. So even this week, all of a sudden, people are starting to say, hey, I'm going to take that rock and start to work on those things. I'm going to get that business objective done right now. So it's been cool to, once we got through the initial scare and build the community part, now we're starting to see people continue to go ahead and be very productive despite, how busy we are and the fact that, this does kind of suck now. I mean, going in the fourth week, this is not fun. This is not what I want to do permanently for sure.
So do you have your entire staff working remote right now?
Yeah, we closed the office 3 weeks ago, a little over 3 weeks ago. We went ahead and for the first week, I had made the personal decision of like, hey, if you personally are fearful or not feeling well, stay home. If you want to come in though, and you feel fine, then come in. And I was going in myself. And that over that week, I talked to some other HR professionals and some other big tech companies in town, a couple of doctors that I know at UW Medicine, and just got a different kind of lens on things and thought, you know what, I'd rather be part of the solution and not looking back and wishing that I had done something differently. So that's when we went ahead and shut the offices.
Excellent. Well, Josh, I think this has been a fantastic talk. I feel like if we don't, almost like your deadlines, if we don't do a hard cut, we could probably go all day.
I think we could.
I definitely want to give you the opportunity to let the viewers and audience know how they can follow you or contact you. What's your preferred social media platform personally of choice?
Yeah, I'm a big Twitter user. So at Josh Dirks, last name's Dirks. You can find me there. At Project Bionic is the agency handle. So you can check us out and watch our zaniness there. But I'm always open and free. I love having these Zoom meetings right now and that kind of stuff. And I appreciate you guys just putting us on and talking about this stuff. I think, to the business leaders and the professionals out there, I think that, it's really easy to get into a scarcity and a fear model right now with everything that's going on. I mean, we talked about news the other day. I'm only allowing myself about 30 minutes of news a day just so I don't allow that to change my emotional state at all. But I think that, try to find a way to live in the abundance and the appreciation mode right now. Really appreciate, hey, I do get to make the kids peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at 12:30. I do get to see my wife every night for the first time at 4:30, right? Like, I think that those types of things are really hard sometimes to celebrate, but if we can live in that mode right now, I think that's whenever Pandora's box starts to open up other opportunities for us economically, and those things start to become pretty exciting at the end of the day. So let's forge on. We can do this together. I'm fully confident in that, and I'm confident in what we can do as a business and a business community. I thank you guys for putting out stuff like this and giving people a daily dose of some goodness with all this other stuff going on.
That's a beautiful sentiment, Josh. I always love the I get to instead of I have to. I have to pick up my kids from school. I get to pick up my kids from school. It's a tiny little thing, but it can make a massive difference in sort of your overall state of happiness. So great way to end this.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. Appreciate you guys hosting this.
Thanks.
Right on. Thanks, Josh.
Man, Josh Dirks, that guy, I'm telling you, someone who can, I want to say talks, he definitely talks better than me. He goes on a roll. I could listen to him talk all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. You're right. We could just have him talk social media all day long. Smart dude.
Yeah. Leyland, I'd like to go to you first. What was your biggest takeaway from Josh?
You know what? I got that sentiment analysis question into him, and that's been something, social is not a major focus of ours in that aspect. So that's a question I've had for some time, which I got to geek out, but it was actually the last thing when he started talking about, how he's limiting himself to 30 minutes of news. It was reassuring.
3
minutes.
I heard 3 minutes. Adam, did you hear 3?
I heard 30.
Oh, okay. Then I'm drunk.
I think it was 30. But it was it was reassuring because, we have those daily check-ins at the Western Group with all the leaders here of keeping our mindset on numbers because the numbers really matter. And it was healthy and it was good to hear another business leader kind of reiterate that sentiment.
And I think I really I like that a lot too, because I think it's important what leaders are putting in their head. But when he was just talking about, this is a chance to make your brand and even break your brand. This is a chance where there's some companies that are failing out there and there's some companies that are really, and again, we don't want to say capitalizing on this, but they're using this as an opportunity to really double down on telling their story and who they are. And he's really helping his customers, sounds like, say, hey, this is your opportunity to really, everybody's listening, everybody's got their phone in their hand to talk and communicate with your clients and talk about the company that you are and the brand that you are. And so just a really important time to think about your brand as a company And like he said, people are judging you, good and bad, extremely quickly these days.
Yeah, and I think that comment too, Joel, is that's almost another, I won't say a negative right now too. The abundance of people that are actually listening right now makes it very, very difficult. If you are putting out good content, it's very difficult right now to get people's attention because there's so much, it's a crowded space where everybody's trying to get attention. So
Noise.
it's almost like you want to,
noise.
yeah, so much noise is going on right now. So it is an interesting thing to think about, especially when you reflect on like what are the things that we're doing to try to break through that noise. And I know we use that a lot when we're talking to clients right now, but it's even more so. Everybody is in front of their screen. So what's going to captivate people? What's going to engage them? And are they going to remember you in 45 days from now when the dust is clearing and people are starting to crawl out and start to interact with the world? And he even said it, people are starting to get squirrely being at home. He's like, this is, we're done. Like this was all right for the first couple of weeks, but now we're getting squirrely here. So
yeah,
that was a good one.
Great episode. Kept it a little bit tighter than our previous episode, but look forward to our next one. Remember everybody, like, subscribe, share. If you are listening to this and you think that you could be a very valuable guest, please hit us up. You can hit us up at thestorybehindthebusiness.com. Find us at agency.media or just Google us.
Yeah.
And become a guest. But
and I think Leyland should throw out his TikTok handle right at the end.
Yeah. No.